You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jamie Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Love Talk Live. I'm your host, Jamie Bronstein. And today I have with me Daniel Herrold. Welcome.
Hey, Jamie, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
It's a good day. It's a great day.
It is. It's a great day to be alive.
Absolutely.
Enjoying the spring. So you are in Oklahoma, correct?
I am. It's a little bit dreary outside, but spring has sprung, and this is kind of the tornado season for Oklahoma. So I'm just, as an Oklahoman, it doesn't bother you that much, but you kind of have to deal with a lot of storms.
But then the storms pass, as in life, right?
Exactly. That's right.
Okay, so Daniel is an amazing man and entrepreneur. So I'm going to read to you guys a little bit about him, and then we'll get into some great discussions. So Daniel Herrold is a divorced dad of 3 daughters living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He is one of the co-founders of Divorced Over 40, a group that provides community to divorced men and women across the United States who are ages 40 plus. This community provides support through content on its social media channels, as well as hosts events with a specific intention of fostering and cultivating friendships. The DO40 community has enabled Daniel to pursue his passion for writing, where he writes on several topics, including his own personal divorce journey, dating over 40, and being a dad to 3 daughters. This led him to create the Intentional Dating Club, an online dating community created that provides techniques and tips on how to create a safer and more positive dating experience. He also hosts 2 podcasts, is on the board of directors of an advocacy group to fight romance scamming. We have to talk about that. And is currently advising several new and emerging dating apps. You can find Daniel most prominently on Instagram at daniel.herrold. His name is spelled under his picture, or on TikTok at Daniel Herrold. So can we talk about
that, right?
I mean, you do so much, but can we just talk about it? Because I don't want to forget to talk about it. The fighting that you're an advocate for romance scamming. That's very, very current. So I love that you're doing that.
Well, and it's people don't realize it, but it is a huge industry. And I can't remember the recent numbers, but I think it's near $500 million was scammed by people through the dating apps last year. And it happens. And there was another stat that I just recently read that said like 20 to 25% of the people that are scammed actually report it. So take 500 million times 4, and you've got this big industry. And the reason why I got into that space and started to become more vocal about it is because everybody was using my pictures on dating apps. Like every week, I'd get a different woman saying, "Hey, are you on Bumble? Are you on Tinder? Are you on Hinge?" And there were all these people that were using my photos to try to romance scam women. And I just
well, it's kind of a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of get flattered. You're like, okay, well, I guess I kind of look like an ordinary guy, right? But several women end up actually giving money to these people, and it really bothered me. And I was like, okay, and that's when I just started educating myself, and I found this advocacy group that all they do is they're a nonprofit, and their vision is to help educate people about romance scamming, about identity theft as it pertains to online dating. And so it's something that I'm real passionate about.
Well, the timing is so interesting. I was just on someone else's podcast. It's called The Race for the Ring. And she's a publicist journalist. She wanted to talk about the Tinder swindler and Inventing Anna, I guess, which is another movie and all this stuff. And so we did a whole show on it. It's very interesting how these people are so intentional, which we're going to be talking about intentional, but in a good way. They're so intentional, and just the energy around it just is so immoral. And
and the technology, I mean, that was like the Tinder swindler. If you saw that was such an extreme of this flamboyant man that was actually physically dating. Most of the scammers, you never even see them face to face, let alone on a camera. But the technology is improving so much where, you know, someone can be in Africa or someone can be in, which is where most of the romance scammers originate from, several countries. And you can change your voice, you can change your what you look like, you know. And
Mhm.
so a lot of these tools they're starting to use to really convince men and women that they're who they are, who they really are. It's kind of scary.
So with this technology, how do I know that I'm actually talking to Daniel Herrold, the
Right.
authentic Daniel Herrold? Is this really you?
Well, do I have any broken English? If I start having a little bit broken English, then that might be your clue, right?
Yeah, like, are you really in Oklahoma? Is this your real accent? Okay. So one thing that I need to do is if you could just keep talking for a second and tell the audience about yourself. I need to do one thing with the window because there's a horrible glare. But please tell everybody about what you do in your daily life
Yeah,
besides for that, and I'll be right back.
absolutely. You know, I'll maybe talk about my how I got in the dating space. You know, as you mentioned, Jamie, I created this divorce community, and it was really meant to be a platonic, non-dating support group. And obviously, the two main topics that divorced men and women talk about, number one is their divorce, and number two is dating, and just how toxic and how disingenuous. I mean, I can use so many adjectives to describe online dating that people felt about it. And I was kind of sitting there going, I really had a great dating journey. My experiences, I mean, I didn't bat 1,000, but they were great. And that's what kind of created the platform to say, okay, there is a way to navigate this in a healthy way, in a safe way, in a way that makes it fun. Dating's supposed to be fun and exciting. You're supposed to get goosebumps. You're supposed to get butterflies in your stomach. And instead of like rolling your eyes every time you start swiping. And you know,
Mhm.
that's kind of my platform, is to help people navigate it in a more intentional way.
Well, I love that you say that dating is supposed to be fun because I have the same exact attitude about it. And I always try to encourage and inspire my clients to do exactly that, to have this positive attitude, to not make dating daunting, but to make it hopeful. And one of the things that I do with my clients is I always tell them that they can be selfish in dating because if you feel like you have to go on that every date has to be 2 hours long and you do that and you go on lots of dates per week, it's going to feel like it's a chore and you're going to resent it. So I always say if you're not happy on the date, feel it out, then do what you need to do to just make it as short as possible and be as discerning as you want with even saying yes to dates. And it's all about you. So, and I agree with you. I've been married to my husband for about 8 years. However, when I was single, I thought dating was so fun. It was before the apps, but it was websites. And
Right.
I mean, I met my husband on Match, and it was an evening activity for me to go online, and I thought it was fun.
It is fun. And I think too often I use the analogy of like a horse race, and horses have these blinders on, and there's a reason why, is because if a horse sees what's next to them, they get distracted, and you want them to stay focused straight ahead on what the prize is, right? And
Mhm.
that's no different from dating. There's lots of negative characters. There's lots of toxic people. There's lots of people that are disingenuous. And if you can learn on the front end to filter those out and just kind of have those blinders on, well, you don't even see them because you're swiping left every time on them and you're moving them out of the way. And all you're focusing on are people that are healthy, intentional, and aligned with what you want. And so that's how you make it fun. Learn how to filter better.
Yes, I love what you're saying. It's like this negative bias that people have. And if you go on one or even 5 or 10 bad dates, that's what people tend to focus on. Versus, but what about all those wonderful dates that you
Right.
had? And if you can focus on those wonderful dates that you had spiritually through the law of attraction, you will attract more of that coming forward.
Yeah. And I think that, speaking of law of attraction, I mean, I really think your attitude is everything when it comes to dating. And if you have a bad attitude going to dating, you're going to attract people that are going to kind of fuel the bad attitude. And if
Yeah.
you're real positive and optimistic and you've got this healthy outlook on dating, those are the people that you're going to kind of attract. And look, we all go through cycles, I think, where you get a little bit of frustrated, and it's okay to take a time out. Nobody's pressuring you to keep swiping. Get off the app, take a time out, focus on, your mental state and getting healthy again and getting optimistic about dating before you jump back on. Because if you get that bad attitude, you're going to just start to attract that.
Exactly. And once people learn this, get it, and start seeing that it's validated, like start seeing that once they start doing this, it actually works, then they get all excited. But until then, a lot of people like to be in this pity party and in this victim mode, but it's just not helpful. It does the opposite. It keeps you there.
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember in your dating, but I mean, it never fails on that first date or even before the first date, you in small talk, you're like, how's your date? How's it been on Bumble or how's it been on the dating app? And, the answer that you want is, oh my gosh, I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed meeting people. It's been a great experience. The answers you normally get is a tirade of all the negativity. It's like all this venom that's kind of spewing out of people. And I'm telling you, that turns people off, especially the healthy people. The healthy people that are intentional and are looking for someone, when they hear that negativity, they're like, I don't want to be with this person. I don't want to go out with this person. And so that's why you just have to take the break. I'm not saying that there's never going to be a time when you feel negative or discouraged about it. But when you do feel those moments, it's time to kind of take a time out.
Yes. And that's being really introspective, just very in touch with yourself and your needs. And along these lines, I always tell my clients to, speaking of the negativity thing, to not talk about your ex, at least right up off the bat. And if you do, don't let it be negative. Just say, you know what, it didn't work out, but not with all this negativity, because I so agree with you. It's so unattractive the way that somebody might be judging their ex, or they're a horrible person, or because then it also makes you think, well, why are we with them, and what's that all about? Because you were the one that attracted them.
Right, right. I always asked about the ex, and I did it for that very reason, Jamie, is because I wanted to see how they reacted.
Yeah,
And so
I
I'd be
love that.
like, it was a very common question for me to say, hey, why'd you get divorced? Because they're going to ask me that eventually. And
Right.
I'd ask that real early because I wanted to see how they reacted. And I remember going to dinner. I went on this date and I didn't ask that question, but then I asked it at the dinner. And literally the entire hour was all about how terrible of a human being that person was. That's all I heard. It was like I was a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how quickly can I get out of this date? And so I asked the question because I want to see, and I encourage people to ask it maybe in a delicate way, because you want to see where their emotional state is. Have they healed from that trauma of a breakup? And have they had the self-awareness and the introspection to say, I may have contributed to a failed relationship. Not all the time, right? But a lot of, and if you see someone that's kind of gone through the self-awareness and they say something, nothing but positive things about their ex, or just, hey, it just didn't work out, it really tells you kind of where they are in their healing journey and whether or not they're healthy enough to date.
I could not agree more. And one thing that you said that is so attractive, it's just an attractive quality, is owning, not blaming. And you said it doesn't happen necessarily in every relationship where it's because of both people, but I fully believe that in every relationship, it takes two to tango, so it takes two to untangle the relationship.
Right, right,
So, and nobody needs to be wrong. This isn't about being wrong, but it's nobody's like on this, high throne and perfect, and the other person's a horrible is trash or anything.
right.
Because these two people did decide at one point to be together, whether it's a marriage or a committed relationship. So there to own and not to blame is such a mature, evolved characteristic and quality that a person can have.
Well, and when someone owns that, I think it makes them more attractive. You
Yeah.
know, even though they're owning that they did some things wrong or they contributed to the divorce. You know, I think the exceptions that we obviously want to be sensitive about is if someone was abused in some
Right.
way, right? If someone was physically abused and they left the marriage because of the abuse, whether it was severe emotional, verbal abuse or physical, then obviously, you know, it's hard to say, well, you know, you did something to create that. But in most cases, when that's not prevalent, you know, it's right. It takes two to tango, and there's always, and I think the people that are just have the self-awareness to recognize, okay, I played a part and I'm trying to make myself better in the next version of myself so that I don't fall into that same trap or those same behaviors.
Yeah. 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 Unless you're intentional, we're going to get into intentional dating in a second. Unless you're intentional about your life and you do that work to heal, you're just going to keep recreating the same cycle.
100%, 100%.
It's important to learn because everything in life happens for us, not to us, and everything is an opportunity for learning, growth, and upliftment.
Well, here's an example. So let's put it as a practical example. Whenever I got into a conflict with my ex, I would button up and I would play the passive aggressive role. I wouldn't really address the issue at hand and I'd just kind of withdraw. And I recognized that as I got out of my divorce, it was like, this is a very unhealthy behavior. And I need to be willing to address the hard topics and the hard issues. And now that I'm in this relationship, you know, if stress comes into the relationship or there's a conflict, I'm like all in. I'm engaged. I want to hear what she has to say. I want to express my own feelings. And so that's something where I own, look, that behavior was nothing but detrimental to the marriage. It's what partially destroyed it, right? I
Yeah.
own it. And now I'm going to fix myself and make myself better in the next version of myself.
I love it. And this is going to be such a great inspirational show because you're a good man. And I have to say I have male and female clients. And a lot of my women single clients, they just haven't seen a lot of good men out there. And I tell them that obviously that they exist. You know, you have to have hope, you have to believe, law of attraction. So I might just share this episode with all of my female clients to show them that you're such a great model of a really good man who's done the work.
You know, and I hear that a lot too. And because I do a lot of lives and I tell people, look, there are some great men of integrity with great character that are emotionally available, that are looking for a serious monogamous committed relationship. They are out there, but they're gems. And you can't just walk down the street and pick a gem off the street. You got to mine for it. It requires effort to find them. And so you just have to be willing to roll your sleeves up to find them, but they're out there. And what's so cool about this club that I've created is there's a couple of women that have found their gem. They've found their plus one and they stayed in the club because now they're posting pictures of them with their boyfriend and their journey along the way. And someone posted this morning and it brought me to tears because my comment was exactly what you said. There are good men out there. See? And I was pointing to the picture of this woman with her boyfriend.
Aw, I love it. So do you want to talk a little bit about this club, the Over 40?
Well, when I got into the dating space, because I wanted to, I enjoyed communicating how to navigate it. I didn't really want to get into coaching, probably because I kind of have a short, I'm not very patient. And so I know coaching requires a lot of patience. But what I recognized in dating, and it was kind of similar with divorce, is there's no community. You know, there's great coaches, there's matchmakers, there's a lot of people that serve the industry, but it's a lot of times it's in a teacher student kind of level. And there's not a lot of people being able to communicate. And I don't know if you remember when you were single, but I hated talking to my friends about dating. I never talked to my family about dating. And so you feel like you're out on an island.
See, I'm a girl and I loved dating. So I told everybody, but go on.
Well, if you have a good experience, right? And And I was like, why don't I create this community, a club where I have like-minded men and women who can go in there and feel safe about talking about their dating journey. And then what I come in then is I come in and I sprinkle knowledge based on people like yourself and other people that are experts in the field and kind of feed them. And so I created what's called the Intentional Dating Club for that very reason. It's a membership only club. And it's really meant, what I really underestimated was just the amount of community that it's created, where people are in there and they're saying, hey, what do you think about this text response? Or how should I approach this woman? How does my dating app look like with this picture? People are going in there and they feel safe. And that's what I wanted to create, was a community where people could feel safe and learn about how to be better daters.
I just love it. And when did you start this?
I started in December, and I really haven't promoted it other than just in my lives. I've got about 150 people now in the group.
Oh my God.
You know, it's anywhere from 35 to, I have a couple of early 70-year-old women that are in there, which I love. A lot, you know, majority women, but some men are starting to creep in there, and from all across the world. I mean, we have people from Kenya. We've got a woman from Greece, Mexico. It's really a worldwide club, and it's so fun to see how it's evolving and growing, and it's become a passion of mine.
Well, good for you. I feel like, I mean, you started in December and you already have 150-ish. So think about the numbers. I mean, it's going to be huge. And I can feel when you're passionate about something, then it ends up being successful. So
yeah, and honestly, when people leave, it's like a time to rejoice, because, and I've had probably 50 or 75 people leave because they found relationships. So, you know, I feel like those are times to rejoice. It's not a club that you're going to be a part of for the rest of your life, but it's a club to help you in the journey and really encourage you and inspire you to date, and to learn kind of how to navigate, because so many people come out of divorces. They've been married 15, 20, 25 years, and the game is so different, you know, with online dating and how to navigate it. That's why a lot of people are susceptible to romance gaming, just because they just don't know what they don't know. And so those are kind of the tips that I try to provide in there, is to help people become more aware of trying to figure out who they're talking to, trying to discern intent, trying to determine alignment, all with the notion of protecting your time. Your time is valuable, protect it. Don't always say yes, to your point. Be able to say no, set your boundaries, and protect your mental health. And you don't want people to trigger you. And so those are kind of the premises or the foundations of what I try to teach in the club.
Yeah, and my favorite topic is intuition. And so it sounds like you're teaching these people just to trust themselves.
Yeah, and it's hard to, I think the ability to trust yourself, the ability to read people, is a learned trait. A lot of people don't have that skill set, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times we ignore the clues that are right there in front of us because we're enamored with the flirting or the butterflies or the fact that that person looks hot or is really attractive, and we don't listen to the words. And so I'm a big believer that you've got to learn to trust yourself. You've got to trust that gut. Women's intuition is more powerful than anything. Trust your gut and take things slow, because the slower you go, the more you're able to read these consistent clues, or more clues that'll pop up that'll say, uh-oh, this is a problem, or, oh, this person is, you know, exactly what I need and want.
Yeah, to be clear on that, to be clear on who you are and what you need and want.
Right.
There was something I was going to say. I can't remember. Anyhow, maybe it'll come to me. So in the meantime, how can people find you? How can people join the group? You have two groups. You have your divorce over 40 group and then your intentional dating group, correct?
Yes. So think of it as, if you just need community and friendships, platonic friendships, and you're divorced over 40. If you want to join a group to help you learn how to navigate dating healthier and in a safer way, Intentional Dating Club. You can find both on my Instagram, which is my full name with a dot in between. And I've got a little hyperlink in my bio, and it's got all of my information in there, and including where to go depending on what you need.
Okay, wonderful. And as always, everybody can find me at therelationshipexpert.com. I think what I was going to say was just a continuation of trusting yourself and going with that we are the experts of ourselves. You don't need to ask a million people what you should do.
Right.
The answer is always within. So I like that you say go slow, because to get quiet. I think this is what I was going to say also. At the beginning, there's the honeymoon period where your neurotransmitters are just firing like crazy. So it's hard for you to see things. And also, I think a lot of more women than men have this. The reason why they stay in a relationship with the red flags is because they have this scarcity mentality versus abundance mentality. Like you said, this hot guy, he brings all of this to the table, but those butts are huge red flags. They might be thinking, am I ever going to get another hot guy again? Or who knows what they're thinking. Right. So it's this scarcity mentality, but the truth is that there's abundance out there, and nobody should settle. The right man is out there for all of them.
Yeah. And if there's one thing I'd add is, I think a lot of times when you're not trusting yourself, it could be because you haven't healed. And just being a divorced man and going through my own healing and dealing with the divorce community, I'm such a big advocate that you really need to be emotionally healed from that trauma, your divorce, before you dive into dating, particularly intentional dating. You can casually date, but when you're ready to start getting serious, you need to be healed, and you can't be looking back in the rearview mirror. And I think too often, because of the scarcity, which is such a great point, you dive into dating thinking my clock is ticking. I got to go find someone. You're not healed, so you don't trust yourself. Mm-hmm. And you have all these insecurities about yourself and the relationship, and it just leads to bad experiences.
So our message today, our PSA, is do that work. Feel healed. Feel full and whole, so that you can go in and attract that match that is aligned with your authentic self, so you can be happy.
100%. That's right.
And in love.
When do you know that you're complete? When dating is kind of an afterthought. It's not the first thing that you're focused on. When you're like, I'm a complete human being. I love my life. I'm happy being single. And if somebody comes into my life, that's icing on the cake.
As you are intentionally dating, but you don't have an attachment to the outcome.
That's it.
I feel like we're finishing each other's sentences a little bit here.
I know, it's great. I love it.
We're a good team. Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing my show today. You've been an excellent guest. You have so much to offer, and I hope anybody who's watching, I'm sure people will be reaching out to you to join your clubs.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor.
Thank you. And everybody join us every Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific. Love Talk Live on LA Tech Radio. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Daniel.
See ya.
You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jamie Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.